call this meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Transportation for the 2023 interim. Before I call the roll, remind you all to silence your cell phones. Also, all the meeting materials today's meeting are currently available on the Transportation Committee page on the LRC website. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Berg. Present. Senator Carpenter. Senator Mills.
Here.
Senator Smith. Senator Storm. Senator Turner. Here. Senator Wheeler. Here. Senator Williams. Senator Wilson. Senator Yates. Representative Branscombe.
Here.
Representative Bridges.
Here.
Representative Dixon.
Here.
Representative Elliott.
Here.
Representative Fleming. Representative Hale.
Here.
Representative Heverin. Representative Herron.
Here.
Representative Hodgson.
Here.
Representative Huff.
Here.
Representative Imes.
Here.
Representative Lewis.
Present.
Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Neighbors. Here. Representative Palumbo.
Here.
Representative Roberts.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Present.
Representative Thomas.
Present.
Representative Upchurch.
Present.
Representative Wesley.
Here.
Representative Williams.
Here.
Co-Chair Blanton.
Here.
Chairman Higdon.
I'm here. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to my co-chair, Representative Blanton, for a special remembrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As most of you may know, the House has lost one of our own just a few weeks ago. Representative Lyman Swan was a freshman representative from Lexington and a member of the House Transportation Committee who was tragically taken from us way too soon. Even though he was with us but a very short time, his personality and his spirit will always be remembered. If you ever had a chance to meet and speak to him, you would know what I'm saying when I say his personality and his spirit. And so with that, at this time, I'd like to ask that Representative Roberts, the minority whip, be recognized for some thoughts on the passing of Representative Swan. Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Chairman. Each of us here who has won these seats, when you write to us, you refer to us as the honorable, and I think the public would probably take issue with calling many of us honorable, but I will tell you that if anyone had truly earned that title, it was Lamine Swan. Representative Swan, while his time here was short, left an impact in this place that will last for eons past his time. He was truly the ultimate height of a servant leader, and I'm proud to have called him a friend even for a short time. I know my colleagues feel the same way. I would ask this body to please keep his family in their prayers and thoughts, specifically his mother, Pamela. And I would also ask this body, especially those of us here on the Transportation Committee, to carry on his legacy of advocacy for those in the disabled community and those with accessibility issues. That was one of the main reasons he wanted to serve on transportation, to make sure that as we're making decisions for our roadways, our public transportation throughout the state, that we think about those who would have unique challenges to accessing our entire Commonwealth. And now I would ask if the members would please join me in standing for a moment of silence in remembrance of our dear colleague.
Representative Roberts, thank you for those kind words. And Representative Swan was a unique individual, and it was an honor to serve with him. Today we have a large contingent of new members join the interim committee this year. 9 from the House and 3 from the Senate, including our new co-chair, Representative Blanton, who we'll look forward to working with this year and many years to come. Our new members are Representative Elliott, Representative Herron, Representative Hodgson, Representative Imes, Representative Neighbors, Representative Roberts, Representative Wesley, Representative Williams, also Senator Carpenter, Senator Mills, and Senator Williams. Welcome each of you all to the committee, and it's be an honor to serve with you this year and the years to come. Our first presenter today really needs no introduction, but we will introduce him. There he is. Secretary Gray. Secretary Gray, please come forward and introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours, Mr. Secretary.
Now, that's better, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Chairman Higdon, Chairman Bland, and new members current members of the Transportation Committee and new members as well. First things first, especially for new members, seems like a short 3 years ago, I was a new member to the Transportation Cabinet. And with the help of a lot of talented people in this cabinet, I feel like I've learned at least some of the ropes of the job. But I want to start by really acknowledging the talent in the Transportation Cabinet. I'm like many of you where we've been in private sector roles, we've been in public sector roles, and we find talented people that we're fortunate when we can surround ourselves with really talented people. And whatever the mission has been for the Transportation Cabinet, whether that's building or maintaining roads and bridges, or whether it's meeting the challenge of a natural disaster like tornadoes and floods, this cabinet and its professional members, professional employees and leaders step up to that job. And it would be remiss of me if I didn't say that right out of the gate. Now, as the chairman said, you all have got a robust agenda here today, and you've got a number of the members of the cabinet who are going to be speaking on the issues on the agenda. And what I was asked to do is spend just a few minutes to give, in a sense, an overview of what the cabinet's work is today, the major projects that we're underway with, and the issues that we're addressing. So we appreciate this opportunity to kick off the legislative interim with this update. And I want to start with an update on the implementing of the 22-24 biennial highway plan, which the General Assembly enacted last year. And again, for those who are new to the process, the General Assembly, and I'm sure this is preaching to the choir in some respects, so forgive me, but the General Assembly does enact the plan that the governor first presents, and it's over a 6-year horizon. But the real nuts and bolts of the plan are, of course, the 2-year plan. And so, where are we on that plan today? Well, like everyone else, it seems that we are finding some challenges, especially in the construction market today. It's tough to keep ourselves staffed in this really robust job market. But we're working every day to implement the highway plan, nevertheless, which is aimed at the betterment of the home districts of every one of you and Kentucky as a whole. We're making progress every day. We take the highway plan very seriously. Chairman, how many times a week do we engage perhaps with you?
Mr. Secretary, sometimes I talk to you more than I talk to my wife in session.
Well, we appreciate that. So it tells you that there's a lot of dynamic interaction, and progress is being made every day. We work to assign funding for the various projects and the phases as quickly as project development allows. Knowing something about having been in the construction industry all my life, I learned that there are lots of acronyms in the transportation world. And one of the ones that's particularly important is PDRU and C, and that's in the plan. And what do those letters or that acronym stand for? It stands for planning, design, right-of-way, acquisition, utility relocation, and construction. So in the plan, you'll see those letters which relate to the particular phase of the project that is being planned for whatever period of the highway plan that you're looking at. So our goal is to get projects in toward construction letting. And we're working to deliver an annual construction program that approaches or exceeds $1 billion each year. And here's a quick breakdown of that. I'm going to talk about 2023 and the same point in 2022 last year, and where we are by contrast with those 2 years. 2023, we are through the April 27th letting, and through that April 27th letting, we've awarded 247 projects, and they represent $380.5 million. Now, at the same point in 2022, last year, we had 282 projects awarded, a little bit more than this year, with $415 million of value so far that year at the same point in 2022. So we're on track to awarding roughly the same amount of projects totally that we awarded last year, which was just under $1.2 billion, it was actually $3 million, $1,197 million worth of projects in 2022. So the path on a straight line is pretty consistent, and we're expecting to award the same this year. Now, that does not include the Brent Spence Bridge Corridor project that is on the horizon. Now, it will be a challenge to get that into the lettings in this year, but that just tells you the scope of what is on the horizon. Because that is between a $3 and $3.5 billion project, and of course it's split between Ohio and Kentucky. But half of that volume, half of that amount will be a Kentucky project. So let's talk about the three mega projects. First, the Mountain Parkway, and then I'll talk about the I-69 crossing in western Kentucky between Henderson and Evansville, and then the Brent Spence project. So on the Mountain Parkway, the last of the Parkway project, we're 70. I see Chairman Blanton shaking his head and smiling, so this is your report, sir, and those of your colleagues in the caucus. 70% is actually under construction or has been completed. And a lot of earth has been moved and paving. Magoffin County West is under construction today and is expected to be completed in 2024. And several bridges and culverts are being built in that segment. The Wolfe County segment has been under construction for about a year. Nearly 1 million cubic yards of earth has been moved in Wolfe County. Construction will be going on all summer in Wolfe and Magoffin counties. Morgan, Magoffin County Central, and Salyersville Restaurant Row segments have, of course, all been completed. The Magoffin-Floyd section, which is the last section currently under development, and it's being proposed at this point in time as a design-build project, which can allow for acceleration of the project. But pre-construction work will continue this summer. We've hosted a very well-attended public meeting in February to show folks the preferred option for the extension from Magoffin to Floyd counties, which is, as the chair knows well, and many and others know well, is the overland path. Our goal is to release the final RFP later this month and award the project later in the summer. So that's I-69. I'm sorry, that's Mountain Parkway. Next, I-69. So when I-69 is completed at the national level, it will be a north-south corridor to move people and people and products from Canada to Mexico. I-69, the Ohio River crossing, is the final connection of I-69 between Evansville, Indiana, and Henderson, Kentucky. Section 1 of the project on the Kentucky side is underway today. It's a $160 million project. It was engaged on a design-build-delivery method as well. It will extend I-69 by 6 miles and will include 3 new interchanges at Kentucky 351, US 41, and US 60. Construction on the approach began in 2022, and it's now entering the second full construction season, with progress being made very well. The Indiana approach begins construction early next year. The two states are working today on a bi-state development agreement that will outline responsibilities of financing, construction, and operations and maintenance of the bridge, of the river crossing itself. The states are preparing for the next round of grant requests for the associated with bipartisan infrastructure law and other opportunities. Grant requests to supplement financing, which will provide an opportunity to accelerate the bridge itself, the river crossing, which is currently planned to begin in 2027. So all that is to say that we're doing all we can to accelerate that project, the I-69 project as well. Okay, the final big project or mega project that we've identified as the large projects, and that's what you wanted me to talk about today, Mr. Chair, is the Brents Bench Bridge Corridor Project. The largest single grant for a bridge project or a corridor project like this in history, with the $1.63 billion in total, with the Federal Highway Administration and U.S. Department of Transportation. And today we are negotiating the grant agreements itself, the grant agreements themselves. There are 2 actual grants, and they total $1.635 billion. We are working diligently with Federal Highways Administration, FHWA leadership, to accelerate the planning and the environmental updates that will confirm the 2012 record of decision with refinements that will confirm that 2012 decision is still valid. That was made and that record of decision, the environmental work that was done in 2012, of course, is now almost 11 years old and is requiring an update. We're also negotiating, we're working on procurement for the project itself with engineering firms, with construction firms. There's been a good interest in the project. One of the challenges, of course, in today's environment, in today's construction environment, and that sector is that there is a lot of work. So we are being very careful to be responsible for the taxpayer dollars. The project team has been actively encouraging businesses and individuals to prepare for job opportunities with this project. Okay, now let me shift over to, I said earlier that I learned the Transportation Cabinet wears a lot of hats, and that includes, in a sense, being the operations backbone with 120 counties, and you all know this better than I do, perhaps. There is a maintenance facility in every county in the state, which translates into when there is a need and frontline help is needed, the Transportation Cabinet is expected and will be there. Let's talk about the disaster recovery. In eastern Kentucky, and where are we? In eastern Kentucky, a total of 76 bridges have been either replaced or repaired. 41 bridges have been replaced since the flood, and 35 others have been repaired. That's a total of 76. In the first phase of debris cleanup, contractors picked up more than 400,000 tons of debris from roadsides and streams. And in the second phase, contractors have picked up debris from private property, the PPDR program, that could not be moved to the roadside. That's being done for property owners who make the request through their fiscal court. To date, It amounts to nearly 1,500 tons in Knott, Letcher, Perry, and Pike counties. In the latest phase, contractors are beginning demolition of property that was irreparably damaged. Now, in both eastern and western Kentucky, Transportation Cabinet continues to aid disaster victims with emergency shelter in our fleets of travel trailers. Again, this was a project that wasn't really on the job description of Transportation Cabinet, but it's one that was picked up when the need arose. That is the travel trailer, bringing the travel trailers into both western Kentucky after the tornado and in eastern Kentucky after the floods. At both ends of the state, our crews are now decommissioning travel trailers as families make the transition to permanent housing. And that decommissioning involves cleaning the units and storing them for future use. In western Kentucky, they're stored either at the Wendell Ford Regional Training Center in Muhlenberg County or at our own state maintenance facility in Ohio County. Units decommissioned in eastern Kentucky are transported to the Bluegrass Army Depot at Lexington or to the Transportation Cabinet's equipment yard in Frankfort. All right, Mr. Chairman, that's all of my update with what you asked me to bring you all today. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, sir.
And for the new members, you kind of earned a nickname over the last few years, and I want to bring that up so they know that you're passionately known as the master of disaster.
Well, and as I routinely, whenever you say that, I appreciate that, but I routinely say that it's a lot of other folks, including a direction by a governor who is on top of these issues. So thank you, though, Mr. Chairman.
You're certainly welcome. And also, we will be taking some questions. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions, but
You want to go on?
No, I
right.
was going to say that Secretary Gray will be back in the future for another meeting to talk strictly or talk in depth about the Eastern Kentucky cleanup and repairs and bridge replacements and all that's going on. And we're going to have a segment just for Eastern Kentucky. So unless you have a very, very burning question about the Eastern Kentucky cleanup, hold that till a future date when we have the Secretary back for that. And I think that's next July. It's in July. Representative Blanton, Co-Chair Blanton will be having that. And Co-Chair Blanton has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. We're excited about that final leg of the Mountain Parkway. Thank you all for the cooperation and hard work you all have put in. Not just there, but your all's folks across this state. They're to be commended for the work they do each and every day. They are truly, sometimes I would say, underappreciated employees of the Commonwealth, and I do appreciate them. But I do have a question actually not involving the Mountain Parkway, but rather the Brent Spence Bridge. So I recently seen an article dealing with the Ohio side where they are seeking to make some design changes over there due to the locals to where the bridge will be crossing into Ohio. Will that impact us? And if so, how?
Well, good question. Good question, Mr. Chair. The short answer is we hope not. We hope it will not compromise the schedule. The efforts that are being taken in terms of the design efforts, the engineering efforts, have always contemplated trying to get the best value for every dollar. And part of that is examining the actual size of the crossing or the bridge itself and the number of lanes, for example. And that's been one of the issues in northern Kentucky with Covington, is making sure that we're not building too much. So, and on the Ohio side, there has been some interest in ensuring that as much developable, I think I'm saying that right, land is created as a result of the bridge and its approach on the Cincinnati side. So all of these are issues that will be addressed in the design and in the what's described as the value engineering phase of the project. And so as it relates to that and the Ohio side, we're very optimistic that we'll work through these issues. You know, it's not as Deputy Secretary and former Secretary Mike Hancock sitting here knows. He was involved in the Louisville bridges, and Mike routinely says, now, there's a lot of issues that come up when you're building these big projects, and you just got to navigate through them, and that's what we're doing.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you. I'm over here behind the pole. Just wanted to mention real quickly, we are very pleased with the progress on I-69, the amount of work that's being done there. Our community is very thankful for that work. With that said, I spent an hour and 20 minutes on the Twin Bridges today because of one accident. So we are still very concerned about how to deal with the Twin Bridges, and I see Deputy Secretary shaking his head, but I just want to make sure that we're still talking about how to deal with that, because from a medium-sized area that I call Northwest Kentucky, Evansville and Henderson, we have a tremendous amount of traffic that uses those bridges and will use the I-69 bridges. So it's a big concern for us still, but we are definitely grateful for the investment in the approaches. Folks over in Evansville are getting excited about planning and everything else, so we're very excited about that. One other question that you touched on, the travel trailers, as they are being decommissioned from Western Kentucky and stored there, are they being cleaned up for sale or gifting, or what's the plan for those trailers in the future? We're not going to just let them sit there and go to waste, are we?
You know, somehow when I was reviewing my comments and was preparing them, I somehow knew that I was going to get that very question. And I should have prepared for it better. But fortunately, you know, we have what are called subject matter experts sometimes in the room with us. John Moore, can you help me with that one, or is that one off? I know we're not just going to leave them.
Right.
And oh, that's right. Yeah, John's got it. And we're staging them because what we found was just as soon as, you know, we had the tornado almost in Western Kentucky, we had the floods. Right. And we were really fortunate that we had held on to 80 of the trailers that we did not resell them or turn them back. And we had them available, and we're able to move them literally in 2 days to Eastern Kentucky. Good. Now, we're not saying we're inventorying trailers. Right. But we are being responsible and thinking about, you know, these are not just, it doesn't seem like that they're just random events anymore, but we should be able to plan and that's part of what we've done there.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. And just wanted to remind the members and that we did not, in this last road plan, when we did the budget, we did not over-program the road plan. So every project in there has the possibility to be built. It won't, if it's not built, it won't be because of funding, except I know you're running into, with inflation, we're running into projects that are coming in way over what the estimated cost was going to be on that. Could you give us an update on that, how often that's happening, and where we're at with those projects that are coming back that are?
I think I mentioned earlier that we've awarded through April 27th 247 projects, and many of those have actually, surprisingly to me, I was thinking the same thing that you're suggesting, but frankly, a number of those projects have been at or below the engineer's estimate. So that's the good news, in that we are adjusting the estimates for the current conditions, and we're able then to meet the plan with the funds that we've got.
Okay, thank you. Representative Tackett Lafferty has a question.
Thank you, Secretary. And I did make the trip in from Eastern Kentucky today and saw all the beautiful construction going on the Mountain Parkway. So thank you. We look forward to that completion. I do have a quick question, though. I noticed that you said that with regard to debris removal, to contact the fiscal courts, that folks should contact the fiscal courts, and I noticed that you didn't list Floyd County as one of those.
I'm sorry?
No, that's okay. I'm just making sure that folks know the process, that I'm able to tell the folks the process if they have concerns about if they have debris removal needs. So,
John, I get to call on John Moore. By the way, if I haven't introduced John Moore, Assistant State Highway Engineer, you all, he's one of these go-to people. And John has picked up the baton, picked up the responsibility for the debris removal.
Okay.
John, what about Floyd?
It's not a county that's been identified as having substantial property debris.
Okay.
If there's a need,
Yeah.
please reach out to KYE.
okay. Thank you very much.
So if anybody needs help, let us know.
Okay, thank you, because
Yes.
I had inquiries from Pike County at one time, but
Right.
I haven't really had
Right.
too many from Floyd, so
Right.
I'll check
Okay.
on that. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I think that's all the questions. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next month. Thank you, sir. Want to remind the members that co-chair Upchurch and myself will be meeting with our members during the interim to work on the road, start discussions about next year's road plan. I encourage all of you to get with your local government officials and be very familiar with your shift projects in your district, so that'll be a topic of conversation. Just remind you that just because something's in the road plan doesn't mean that it'll get built. The Lebanon bypass was in the road plan, the 6-year plan for 25 years. So just tell you how the system works sometime. But we're doing a little better these days. But until a project is put in we can have it in the plan, but till it's in the budget, it's actually funded. Those projects are not built. So this road plan and the budgeting process is very important. So just want to remind all the new members that how important that is. Next on our agenda, John Moore, Justin Harrod. If you don't mind, gentlemen, introduce yourself for the record and please proceed.
My name's John Moore, Deputy State Highway Engineer.
My name is Justin Harrod from KYTC, and I am the project manager for this project.
Today we'll be providing an incremental update for the electric vehicle infrastructure deployment effort. Focus on 3 main items as we're moving forward. A little bit of background on the funding, the planning process, as well as the implementation schedule. So first up, I'm going to just review the federal funding aspect for the electric vehicle infrastructure that provides the vehicle for which we can do this. In the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, 2 pots of money were identified under the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. You'll hear me call that NEVI program through the balance of this presentation. One is an allotment of formula funds. Those are allocated to Kentucky without competition. And then there's a discretionary grant program that's open to all states and in a competitive nature. And I'll get into that a little bit more later on. To date, we have unlocked essentially $25 million of the formula funds, and we anticipate unlocking another $15 million later this year when we update our plan. So our EV charging program, as I mentioned before, initially when our Navy plan was approved back in August of 2022, and with that we secured 2 fiscal years of funding. That's the $25 million. We're due for another update. The FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, requires an annual update on that. When we update that in August, and ideally it gets approved in October, that will unlock the fiscal year 24 funds. The update this year is going to focus on the 4 items that you see there, as well as additional elements as we look to polish up the plan. And just for your information and for anybody that's interested, we have a stakeholder meeting to help kick that process off on June 27th at 11 o'clock. Anyone's welcome to attend to help comment on this. Just a reminder, the parameters that are provided for the Navy program for the formula funds, those funds initially are restricted to the alternative fuels corridor. These in Kentucky are the interstates and parkways. They're limited to require charging stations every 50 miles within a mile of the corridor, require 4 150 kilowatt fast charging stations, and required to be open to the public 24/7. These are the parameters under which the corridor is considered fully built out, and that has significance on where we can use the funds moving forward. This program, the intent of the program out of the outset, is intended to jumpstart the private sector, and with that, we anticipate that these will be fully privately owned and operated. And this is a similar approach that many states are using. Just as an example of what a potential deployment might look like, for a station that costs about $1.8 million, there'll be a construction phase and then 5 years of operations and maintenance. That's considered the performance period. For the construction, presuming 80% of it is part of the construction portion, that would be completed roughly in about 15 months. That's very dependent upon the lead time on materials. And out of that, the applicant would bear the 20% match, the $290,000 in this case. And then for the operational period, 20% of that total would be reserved to reward the applicant for to operate and maintain that through the 5 years. Just a reminder of our rollout plan. Currently, we're in phase 1 and phase 2. We cannot leave phase 1 and phase 2 until we have completed the build out of the alternative fuels corridor. These are the interstates and parkways, the 50-mile deployment range. Once we get that completed, which we anticipate is going to be toward the end of 2025, we'll be able to move into the other priority corridors as well as community or destination chargers. So now that we have a little bit of background, we're going to talk a little bit about the implementation, what we've done to date in support of implementing this program. So to start off with, back last summer, we issued a request for information. This is new to us as well as new to the private sector, so we wanted to gather as much information as we could regarding contracting parameters and things that we may not be aware of from our approach. We got information back in September. From that, we derived quite a bit of feedback from the industry. Had I believe 150 responses off of this.
That was comments from the RFP.
Okay, excuse me.
We had 36 respondents.
We had 36 for this early phase, and got feedback on the elements to consider moving forward. Feedback on the risk-based procurement, as well as things that the snakes in the grass, if you will. As well as we got positive feedback from the industry on their willingness to provide the 20% match in support of this program. Following that, based on those comments we received, We put together a draft request for proposals. We put that out in January for public comment. We received 150 comments on this, and provided quite a bit of feedback on how this RFP, the strengths and weaknesses of the proposal. With that, we're compiling a final RFP with the intent to release that later this month. With this being a first of its kind deployment, we've hit a number of speed bumps, if you will, as we're trying to fit this unique deployment and procurement into the federal requirements that are don't fit this type of deployment. Even with those speed bumps that we've encountered, we still expect to be amongst the earliest 10 states to deploy their RFP. Along with that, some changes that you might notice, or someone might notice as they're reviewing the RFP, is that one, this is a purchasing contract, and in coordination with Federal Highway Administration, we ensured that this is compliant with their design build procurement regulations to fit a procurement vehicle to ensure compliance. In order to protect the public interest, we included some bonding insurance requirements as well as inspection criteria to make sure that the stations are performing well, as well as an element that kind of snuck up on us a little bit is the return on investment cap that the Federal Highway Administration requires on projects, and so we're having to pass along that a cap on return on investment through at least through the program period or performance period of the deployments. So here is an early version of this. I will share that as of last Friday, we got updated guidance just in time for us to shift gears. And so we're going to have to revisit this to maybe chop up some corridors just a little bit. But this is essentially looking at potentially one station per corridor group. This would fully build out the designated alternatives fuel corridor. And then at that point, we can move into the phase 3 deployment as well as community charging stations. And as I mentioned, this is likely to be modified slightly as we dig into the very recent guidance that came out. Once we get proposals back, we'll look at that using 3 criteria. One is completeness, the technical aspect of the proposal, as well as, of course, the cost. With that, looking at 3 bonus categories: the uniqueness of the site, the applicant's experience with this type of deployment, as well as the potential user experience of those that are using these sites. With that, once we have fully vetted those proposals, we expect to be, and these proposals are due in August. We're allocating about a month to review these to identify which ones to issue a notice of intent to award. Since these are federal funds, we have allocated a couple months to ensure compliance for environmental purposes. For those that are less complicated, that award could come earlier, but we anticipate that majority of these or most of these, we hope that all these will be awarded by December is our goal. So that's where we stand on the formula funds. Want to talk just briefly about the discretionary or competitive grant program. This is a funding opportunity that came out in March. It includes 2 categories of funding. One is a supplement to the corridor program, to the NEVI corridor program, and the second is community program that's much broader and has applicability for a number of different communities. So along with that, not only the state can apply for these, but metropolitan planning organizations, local governments, cities and counties, or area development districts are all eligible to to apply for these grants. First, I want to talk about the quarter program. These are, as I mentioned, it's somewhat an extension of the NEVI program. The only nuance is that it's open to other fuels besides just electric vehicles. But this would allow a local government or a local entity to apply their own location criteria to deployment of stations. This is competitive, so it not guaranteed at all, but a good opportunity. The one that I think has more opportunity in Kentucky is the community program grants. These are can be off of the alternative fuels corridor, so they're open for any community in Kentucky, with a focus on, as with all of the NEVI program, with environmental justice, ADA, and rural area focus as well. So these are awards of $500,000 up to $15 million, depending on the size of the application. To date, we're aware of 5 different agencies that are looking to put in for this. Pennyrile Area Development District with the 3 counties noted, Kentucky River Area Development District, Louisville Metro, the Louisville MPO, KIPTA. They're partnering with Taylorsville and Spencer County. And the last on our list that we're tracking is City of Versailles is also looking to put in an application. For transportation's perspective, we have actually been working with a group of Appalachian states to begin planning for a deployment along the Appalachian region, and we're preparing an application for a future cycle that for these grant programs. So with that, I'll open it up for questions, and before I just want to leave this up while we're talking. If you're interested in any background on the EV program, there's a QR code you can scan, and it'll take you to an opportunity to sign up as a stakeholder to get periodic updates like today's update that announced the stakeholder meeting on the 27th, or stay up to date on the program. So,
John, thank you for that presentation. If you will, when that RFP is issued, would you make sure the staff gets a copy of that so they can keep us abreast of that?
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Senator Mills has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. A couple of questions. You didn't mention the specifics on the charging stations themselves, the type of charging stations. Are there requirements that these would all be fast charging type Tesla type stations, or is it a trickle charge or a mix, or what's the requirements in those?
For the requirement with the federal program is called fast chargers.
Okay.
And they are required to be 150 kilowatt chargers.
Okay.
Anything above about 100 kilowatts is considered a fast charger. A nuance with that, currently Tesla is proprietary, and so those there is talk amongst the industry that they may open up their network to others. Until they do that, they would not be eligible for these funds.
So are they looking at about a 15 to 20 minute charge time at these stations? Is that approximate?
The goal is about a 30-minute charge.
30-minute charge.
Once you get access to the charger, that's a rough guideline.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, can I ask one more follow-up?
You may.
And then another area of concern is, could you expand on like the type of people that showed interest in these? Are these our petroleum marketers across the state wanting to add these to the stations? Are these specific developers that are looking to move away from the normal C-store type development?
We've had quite a mix of those that are interested. I've not seen a rundown of those. I'll ask Justin if he's aware of the mix, but
Yeah, so like with regards to like our RFI that we put out last fall, we got several utilities, several petroleum marketers was one of them. We also got the private industry. So we had quite a range of people representing the industry overall, private and public sector as well.
We've coordinated with the petroleum manufacturers or and the petroleum marketers, as well as a number of the manufacturers of the EV charging stations. So it's and we're steering no direction. It's whoever comes to us with the best proposal.
That is one of my biggest concerns with this implementation is kind of the crushing of the C-store, convenience store, petroleum marketers, business and business plan. So
I'd
thank
say
you.
that they have a very competitive footprint to deploy these.
They do. Thank you.
Yeah. Representative Hodgson.
Yes, sir. I think I understood this from the presentation, but are there any Kentucky taxpayer funds involved in the construction, ongoing maintenance, or provision of electricity for these stations?
As the program is laid out, it would be matched with local funds, with private funds, and then the federal funds would be used for that. So as of right now, with the formula funds, we don't anticipate any road funds or Kentucky funds being used to deploy those.
Thank you.
Representative Smith has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you have a study of the preferred areas for these type of charging stations? I know you probably have a layout across the state. I know you had corridors, but say my district lays on 75. Do you have a study that shows participation with electric vehicles in an area that I can use to encourage maybe a local area on getting these charging stations? I know it's all due, if you're talking about private sector, it's all due with the income, but even the government areas, local governments, do you have a study that you have that shows what the participation would be in those areas?
As part of our EV deployment plan, we didn't look at where EVs were housed because these are generally longer trips that would be require public chargers. These are more of your Ohio to Tennessee trips than, or perhaps a Pikeville to Paducah trip. And so it's not necessarily as important where they're housed, but as part of that, we did locate areas of the state that were more attractive because of amenities, because of power availability, because of proximity along the corridor. That would be more basically rating the attractiveness of different areas. So be happy to share our deployment plan, and there's some graphs in there that you can share.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Williams has a question.
Thank you for the presentation right here.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I just want to know about what kind of interactions you have with the energy companies or utilities, and what impact do you see that having on availability, how much power?
And send it to staff. Send it to staff, excuse me, and then staff will get it to the members. Glad that'll save you a lot of time. Yeah. Representative Mills, back to you. Senator Mills, excuse me, back to you.
Commissioner, Ms. Cook, I just wanted to let you know of just a situation in the rural part of my district dealing with kind of overweight, oversized vehicles. It's in Union County, going from Union County to Shawneetown, the Shawneetown Bridge. There seems to be kind of an ongoing, it's been going on for 4 or 5 years, kind of aggressive ticketing of oversized large vehicles that come from Kentucky to Illinois to farm in the bottomlands and things of that nature. Do y'all regularly have conversations with Illinois and Indiana on how to be kind of good neighbors and how to make that work out?
I know years ago there was a lot of focus on it with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Because there were some differences, like Illinois does not exempt the farm plate as we do.
That's right.
So that was causing a lot of issues with the IFTA fuel tax.
Yep. So who would, Are there ongoing conversations within the transportation cabinet, or is that more of a state police type?
It would be more of an
Situation.
enforcement issue.
Okay, all right. I'll get with them because I had 2 complaints during the last harvest. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you all for being here. Okay, we do have Co-Chair Blanton has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your presentation. Very quickly, if I'm wanting to get one of these permits and I apply for it, what's the average turnaround on something like that?
Well, depending on how large the permit is, we have a specific scope that we use. It may be something you could self-issue and get instantly.
Okay.
The turnaround time, if it has to come in for staff to review, it's usually a couple of hours at the most.
Okay. Follow up.
Yes, sir.
Do you all still have employees that deal with these things? Are they still working from home, or are they back in their offices?
Everyone now we have is back in office.
All right.
And I did want to add to that time frame you were referring to, if a load is considered a super load, it has to go to our bridge engineers to be reviewed, and that's a process that could take up to 10 days.
Okay. All right. Very good. I asked a question about being back in, as I had someone trying to apply for one, had some questions, and it took a couple weeks before they could ever get a hold of someone to ask some questions. So I feel like part of that maybe was when they were working from home, and it made it a little more difficult. And I just wanted to make sure everybody's back in, because it does impact turnaround time on some of this stuff. So I'm glad to hear they're back.
Well, we had great performance during all of that time when we were all at home, just because these are easily trackable things on how aged they are in the system. And we encourage anyone to contact us at any time with any questions, and we're always glad to help them.
Okay. Thank you all.
Well, again, thank you on it. Some quick math I did on the $8 million that we took in for the transportation cabinet last year, 91,000 permits. It's about $90 per permit. Does that sound about right?
Well, that would also include our annual permits, which
Okay.
have a range from anywhere from $80 to $1,500, depending on what you're asking for.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further questions, I remind everyone on the committee that our next meeting will be July the 18th due to the 4th of July holiday, and I think there's a conference in there. Thank you, all the new members. Welcome again to the committee. Thanks, staff, for your